Que nanas capten que se manito, oche amane pe matsoen, hey ho. Que nanas comte nanochi oh.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
I have it on.
Hello? Are we muted?
Speakers. You gotta change the speakers. That's what it is.
Sorry.
There you go.
All right, we good? Okay, we're back. Sorry, guys, about that. But welcome back to episode 5 of Hailey Rose podcast. Today's going to be an amazing episode. Sorry for the past 2 minutes where I talked and you couldn't hear me. But this week has been crazy, but I'm loving it. I had an exam this week and, I was getting crazy anxiety because I was so scared about this exam that I was supposed to do. And I got it over and done with, and I feel like stress-free. I feel like I just got it all out of me. I was like studying so hard for this exam, and I'm not much of a scientist myself. Ever since I was young, I literally did not like science. I was more of like a math girl, and man, science is difficult for me, but it's okay. I got it over and done with, and I'm like, yes, like I feel like I achieved something, So, but that's what I wanted to talk about with you guys today, is anxiety. And I think there's a lot of people out there who may be getting anxiety and not even knowing it, or not acknowledging it, or not even understanding what anxiety is itself. And so I would like to tell you guys, maybe give you some sort of knowledge or comfort in what anxiety is, or where it comes from, or how you can help yourself when you're having a panic attack or you're freaking out about something. Personally, when I first started doing public speaking, when I was 15 years old, like I had no experience. I probably could have never, ever in my life would have thought I would be on a podcast right now talking in front of people. But when I was 15, 14, just a young duckling, I used to go up on stage, and this is when I first started doing my public speaking, and my heart would start racing and my voice would get shaky, and I started to get this feeling where, no, I don't want to do it anymore. Like my heart would I could feel it literally pounding out of my chest, and it was freaking me out. Or I would take a sip of water because I was trying to calm myself down, but I knew that something was telling me Hailey, you're not ready for this. I don't think you can do this. And I remember people would tell me oh, you're only 15 years old. People aren't going to judge you if you mess up because you're still a kid. You're young and they can't expect you to be perfect. And I remember this one time I was in Ottawa, and I think it was for the Canada We Want conference. And we were talking about the justice system. And I was chosen to be one of the public speakers because I didn't want to do the whole report, to like do the writing. I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And they threw me up on this stage. And I'm talking, there was like probably 300 people downtown Toronto. I was like freaking out, trying to act like everything was okay, that I was like ready for this. I was going all in. I was like, yes. But I'm telling you, the second I hopped on that stage, like a whole wave hit me, and I started to like sweat right up here. My hair was gelled real nice, real slick. It was like I was like looking real indigenous, not like this, obviously. I didn't slick it today, but yeah, my little baby hairs started to come off, and they were like falling everywhere, and I was like, holy smokes. And I was waiting for my buddy to finish their speech, and I was standing next to them, and I was like sweating under my armpits, and I was like, I don't sweat like this. Like when I play soccer, I don't even sweat like this. And it was like freaking me out. I was like, people are gonna know that I'm like anxious right now. And I was like trying to cool myself down. But at the time, I didn't know how. I didn't understand too much about what anxiety is. I didn't really ever be taught that. I didn't know. Like I knew that, I felt not ready to do this, but I didn't know how to really cope with it and be like, cool down, right? How to breathe and like just calm myself down. And so I got up there and I was like, hello, everyone. And I was like, oh, I was like, this is not good. And I couldn't even get through the first 2 words. Like I couldn't even say my name. Like I'm not saying it was the worst, but in that moment, it was just, I could already feel that people were like, oh my gosh, she's anxious, or oh my gosh, like she's not doing good. And that's what I was putting in my head. I was putting in my head that these people were going to judge me. They were going to judge me because I couldn't speak in front of these people, or I wasn't fully confident. And I clearly wasn't. I wasn't, because I wasn't ready for something that was placed into my hands, which caused anxiety. And so I got through the presentation, my little speech, but it didn't go as well as I thought. But I knew after that I had to learn about it, and I had to know ways that I could deal with anxiety so that would never happen again. And I knew that if I was going to be a public speaker, I had to learn how to talk in front of a crowd. I had to learn how to be able to stand up and not feel anxious and not start, twiddling my fingers around, or maybe I was, shaking my feet, or my legs were like, I was rocking, or maybe I'm doing this. Like I knew I couldn't do that. And hey, Taylor. So anxiety, it's our body's natural response to stress. Anxiety is normal. A lot of people think that we have to normalize anxiety, or we have to normalize mental health, but I think it's already so normal because everybody experiences it at least once in their life. Everybody is going to experience it, whether they know it or not. And, as I said, like I let it interfere with something that made me proud, something that I like to do. But it can interfere with daily activities. It can interfere when you're talking to people. It can interfere when we're trying to focus and control ourselves, and we find that we can't focus, or we find that we're starting to panic, or we find ourselves avoiding places because we're scared, or we feel uncomfortable when we're in those places. I'll answer this question real quick. If you guys are watching, be sure to comment where you're located. I will be honored to answer you guys answer your guys' questions if you'd like. This podcast is like open discussion. I want to have discussions with my viewers all the time. I want to involve them. And, I'm young. I'm 18 years old. I don't know everything. And, I'm willing to learn from everyone. And I want to really engage with the people that are watching my podcast. And that is another reason why I like having them live. It allows me to engage with my audience, and, I really like that. So I'll answer this question. What advice would you give to young teenagers who struggle with public speaking? I would start by, actually, I'm going to keep that up. When I first started doing public speaking, I found that if I didn't have a script, I would lose my plan, like what I was going to say next. And because I didn't have something in front of me that was going to lead me to the next thing that I was going to say, I would be jumping everywhere, or I would be thinking before I'm even spitting it out. I would be like, I got to say this next, or, oh my gosh, I forgot to say this, or I forgot to say this. And I would bash myself because I would then go later watch it and I'd be like, I forgot to say this, and that was important. And that was important to say, and I forgot it. And so I think personally for me, it really helps to have a script. And I know for a lot of public speakers out there, sometimes people will, say something because you said something wrong, or you shouldn't have said that. And I never wanted that to happen to me. And it would create anxiety for me when that would happen. So I started to write down everything that I was going to say, because I wanted to be able to proofread it. I wanted to know that what I was putting out there to the world, what I was feeding these people, this knowledge or this skill or technique, that I wanted it to be true. And I didn't want them to have a way to say, no, that is not true, or you shouldn't have said that, or this, So I think I would definitely tell these teenagers to have a script or have a plan of what you're going to say, so you can fully prepare yourself. But I know that when I smudge, or if I pray before I go into a podcast, or if I go into an audience and speak on a platform or something, I always ask my ancestors, like, help guide me. I hope this goes well. I'm asking for good hearts. I'm asking for good words, or I'm asking for good things to hear. Somebody told me a couple years ago, like, the ancestors can't help you unless you ask. And like, ever since then, I've just been asking like crazy. And when I started doing public speaking, though, I used to just speak in front of like my family, learning how to speak with my teachers, even having conversations with people, having conversations with your friends. And like, I think when you go on stage, a lot of people can get scared and frightened because, you have a lot of ears and you have a lot of eyes watching you. But I think it's like a mentality where you have to believe that you're going to do it. You have to believe that, it's going to go amazing, that people are going to love what you have to say, and they are. And so that would be my advice. That was a great question. Thank you, Shaylin. But I wanted to talk about signs of anxiety and what it can feel like. And of course, like feeling nervous all the time, feeling restless. It's important that you are getting your sleep. It is very important that you are getting your sleep every single night, at least 7-8 hours a night. Like, that is just perfect. For me, it's the heartbeat. That is another sign of anxiety. And, I feel really open to talk about my personal experience with anxiety, because I think a lot of people are scared to open that door for themselves and to let that out to other people. But I know personally, when I was going through it, I wish I would have, listened or heard somebody talk about anxiety and what it does, how to heal from it, or how to cope with it, or what to do when it happens. You can feel really weak. You can feel tired, restless, like I said, like no motivation. It can sometimes lead to that. Panicking, when you're like doing something and you're panicking, or you're worrying about something that's going on and you should not be worrying about it. Like I said, you could avoid places because it's going to panic you, or you're going to freak out, or you're going to get sweaty. And that's another thing, getting sweaty under the pits, or maybe you're getting sweaty up here, or maybe back there. Just kidding. No, actually, I think some people get sweaty back there. But trouble sleeping. That's a really big one for me. Anxiety can lead to you having a hard time to sleep. And sometimes I find myself actually laying in bed and I'll have thoughts and thoughts and thoughts running through my head, or what am I going to do tomorrow? Or I forgot to do this. And I'm like, should I get up, or should I just lay in bed? Or, man, I really messed that up. Like, how am I going to fix that? And so I think it's important that you're getting your sleep, and that if you're having trouble sleeping, and that's where that anxiety could be coming from, that you're either journaling, or you're writing it down, or you're talking to somebody, or you're talking to a friend, or whatever, because it can really affect you and really take a toll on you if you're having trouble sleeping because of anxiety and things that you shouldn't be worrying about at the time. But I know there's a different interpretation of anxiety for many people out there. Like my interpretation interpretation, I don't even know the word. It's going to be different from, say, an adult. It's going to be different from an elder. And there are different types of anxiety disorders. And I hate to say the word disorder. I don't know why, but when somebody says disorder, I don't like it. Like I just don't like the way it sounds. But there's panic disorders, and panic disorders are repeated episodes of sudden feelings of intense anxiety where it really strikes you, like it's really hitting you, or fear or terror, or you're scared to do something. It can also be from shortness of breath. You can find yourself like you can't breathe, or you get like a dry mouth and you need to take a sip of water because you're so anxious. Checking in and sharing my support. Thank you. I have my little script here. There's a separation disorder. This is a tough one for a lot of kids. It goes back to childhood, related to separation from your parents, your keepers, whoever keeps you. It can affect you when you're older and you're getting separated from somebody. It might cause anxiety because you're scared to leave that person. You're scared that person will leave you. It's a fear. It scares you. It doesn't make you feel good. So that's separation disorder. There is social anxiety. I'm telling you guys, during COVID right now, and I bet you there's a lot of us, we're forgetting how to talk with other people. We're forgetting how to have a conversation because we don't go anywhere. At least I don't go anywhere. So I think in a way, like, it really helps that I'm constantly speaking with other people, because I know how it can feel when you're out in public or you're having a conversation with somebody and you start to feel panicky. Your heart starts to pound, you shortness of breath, whatever it is. That all goes back to social anxiety. And I'm telling you, like, you don't ever want to get to the point where you're avoiding people, or you're avoiding your family, or you're avoiding school or work because you're so anxious to go, or you're fearful of it. And so those are high levels of anxiety. And I'm not sure all of the disorders. I know there's just the good old anxiety disorder, and I think those just cover it all. I think it covers back to, the shortness of breath. It covers feeling weak, having trouble sleeping. It goes to sweating. It goes to the heart pounding, or the shaking, or the tapping. Sometimes I actually find myself, and my sister does this all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'll be like swinging my foot, or I'll be like, clicking my fingers, clicking the pen. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this right now? I don't need to be doing this. And I have to, in that moment, remember where it's coming from. And when you think of anxiety, there's always something that is causing it. There's something causing that anxiety in that moment. And it could either be a traumatic event. You're trying to avoid a person, you're trying to avoid a place because it triggers you. It doesn't make you feel good when you walk into that building. It doesn't make you feel good when you stand next to that person, and it can cause anxiety for yourself, and better that, it can cause anxiety for other people picking up that energy. It can be inherited. It can be genetics. It could be, maybe your parents had it, or maybe your mom had it when you were in the womb, and, it can be inherited. I actually read that somewhere, and I was like, no, like that can be inherited, but it's true. It can be. And I didn't even want to believe that. I was like, that makes sense though. But anxiety can also be from other mental conditions or mental issues. It can be from, if you have a depression disorder, it could be from a mental health disorder or a mental issue that you may have, depression. Those can also trigger the anxiety for sure, 100%. I'm just going to take a sip of my water. I feel like this gets so serious sometimes. But stress has always been the biggest factor for me. I think I'm constantly overworking myself sometimes. And I think there's a lot of people out there who also feel that way. I feel like, maybe you're worrying about something that happened, or maybe financially, or maybe you're worrying about school, work. You're constantly hearing noise, you're constantly hearing music, people laughing, people talking. It can be overwhelming. It can definitely be overwhelming and cause anxiety. I think, not personally for me, but a huge one that causes anxiety is drugs and alcohol. And I don't think it ever came to me that way, but drugs and alcohol can really affect you in so many ways, giving you anxiety. I know there are some people out there who, they're feeling anxious sometimes, and they'll run to drugs, or they'll run to alcohol because they don't want to feel that way anymore. They don't want to feel anxious. They don't want to, feel any sort of discomfort in any way. But drugs and alcohol is definitely one of the biggest causes to anxiety. That's for sure. I'm just going to take another sip here. But I know that there's other causes to anxiety. I would just like to pull up this comment back here. What does anxiety feel like to you? Yeah, like I said, I always get, and even like when I do a podcast, sometimes I get my adrenaline will get so high, and I get so excited. I start to freak myself out because I'm like, okay, I need to settle down a bit. But I remember, like, if I go into that podcast with such good energy, such good adrenaline, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to be happy. People are going to love the energy. But sometimes when I have such rank adrenaline, it can cause like my heart to race. And like there has been some points where my heart literally feels like it's popping out of my chest. Like I can feel it. And I start to like remember, like, okay, cool down, because you don't need to like, be freaking out that much. But also my hands get sweaty. My hands will get sweaty. You know, when you're on a date with somebody and your hands start to get your hands start to get sweaty. No, I haven't been there, but yeah, sweaty, definitely sweaty for sure. Armpits never get sweaty unless I'm anxious. It's weird, but it happens, and I know that I'm anxious when it happens. Here I'm just talking with my hands. And I think another really big one, and I think it's for a lot of teenagers and young students or youth, they stutter. I find I stutter because I'm thinking in my head. I'm like worrying about what I'm going to say, and I start to stutter, or I'll repeat my words. And I know I do it on my podcast sometimes, but, you know, repeating those words, or I mess up a word, I fumble it up, I don't say it right. And I know that I'm anxious in that moment. And sometimes when that happens, when I mess up, when I'm public speaking or something, I start to bash myself. When I'm still talking on stage, I'll start to like bash myself and like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. And that anxiety gets worse, instead of me saying, it's okay. Like, it's okay that you messed up, Hailey. It's okay that you messed up that word. And so I think when you're feeling anxious, when you're fearing something, when you're trying to avoid something, or in any sort of way you're feeling anxious, shortness of breath, sweaty, you're shaking, you know, you feel you're walking around the house, you're pacing, looking for something to do when there's nothing to do. Go for a walk, go for a walk, spend that time in nature, look at the birds, listen to the birds, pick up some snow in your hand and just feel it. Work out at the gym. Maybe you're getting anxious because you're so angry or you're upset or you're mad, pick up that weight or, run a little bit so you can release it and let it go. That definitely helps me. Letting go of anything that I'm feeling. I think it can help a lot of people out there. And I know a lot of people that, have anxiety, and that's what they do for themselves. They'll go play a sport, they'll go for a walk or just anything. Time in nature is so important, but sometimes we're in a position where we don't just have time for that. We don't have time to go for a half an hour walk, or we don't have time to go spend an hour at the gym just because you're feeling anxious. So make sure you're wary of your surroundings and breathe, moments of in stillness and just staying still and silent in your own moment. I did a podcast last week, and I think those techniques would really help, but I just want to say them again. I always like to inhale all the positivity. I like to think of positive things that are going on in my life right now. I like to think of my dreams. I like to think of my goals. And when I inhale, I'll think of all of those good things, and I'll breathe as long as I can. And then when I exhale, I'll exhale anything that is bugging me at that time. I'll exhale all of the negativity, and I'll repeat that probably like 4 to 5 times. And I think by the 4th time, I feel better. I feel calm. I feel at peace. Like I feel confident. I'm like, okay, I feel so much better. So that's what I really like to do. I know there's a lot of people like, I don't know how to breathe though, or I can't take it seriously. And I'm like, I think you'll feel it. I think you'll feel it and you'll know when to do it. Just be there and just inhale and exhale. And, sometimes it's really important that we focus on our breathing and we just take a step back and be in our own moment. It's also a really big part of self-care is to take that 5 minutes out of your day to yourself, whether you're going to journal it or write it down or talk to a friend or even meditate. But I hope I gave you guys some good ways and some good tips to help you with, if you're feeling a little anxious during these times. COVID is affecting us all greatly. It's definitely affected my mental health in so many ways. But I think it's really important that you acknowledge the way that you're feeling. You acknowledge your good and bad days. You acknowledge how you're feeling in that moment. You're acknowledging the way that person might be making you feel. I'm just going to pull up these comments. Anxiety comes from past trauma your body remembers. Yes. And that's it. Traumatic events can definitely trigger you. They can trigger you. Trauma can come from when the mother is carrying unborn child. Oh, yes. And that's what I read. I was like, what? Really? But I've read other things, how you can pick up, any sort of personality trait when you're still in the womb. But I think during COVID right now and in this pandemic, it's really helped me, listening to these podcasts. And I think it's really helped me talking to other people and making sure that I'm talking with family and I'm talking with friends. I'm staying active, or, if I'm having trouble sleeping, it was probably because I didn't work out, because, it sometimes I need to let go of all that energy that I have in me. But anxiety, it's normal. It's normal for everyone. And if you're feeling anxious at any time or wherever, remember what I'm telling you, because it's gonna work. But it's okay to be anxious. I have never been a judgmental person myself. And, if somebody is ever around me that is feeling a little anxious, or I notice it, I'm like, gee whiz, like, what's wrong? Or there's something bugging them. And, that's your call telling you that you need to let it go somehow, or find what may be bugging you at that moment. Find that. And I think once you find whatever is causing that anxiety, or where it's coming from, maybe if it's from the past, maybe it's something that you didn't remember, just try and find that. I think personally for me, I really found mine, and I just meditating, breathing, like as soon as I wake up, I take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just breathe. And, I go the whole day feeling really good. And I think it helps keep me balanced. And I think, I'm constantly around other people's energies. I'm constantly surrounding myself by other people when I don't know what they're going through, or I don't know how they're feeling that day. And, sometimes you don't want to pick up some negative energies from other people, because you don't want it to ruin your day, or you don't want to feel that sort of discomfort. So I'm always sure to wake up in the morning and just take that time to, meditate myself and inhale all the good stuff, let go of all the bad stuff. But I hope this really helped you guys. I actually wanted to say and acknowledge here what has been happening in North Battleford. There's a lot of crazy things that are happening here in the community. And I would just like to remind all you individuals here in our community to support one another here in North Battleford, support one another. As Indigenous people, we have to fight for what's right, and we have to stick together and encourage our brothers and sisters to do so as well. And so, you know, like if you ever see something that isn't good for the community, isn't good for our people, make sure you're doing the positive thing. Make sure you're doing the right thing, to make sure that, you know, we're going to the right place together. We're going to the same place at the end. And so I just had to say that. I just had to put that in there. Just kidding. But man, thank you guys for watching. I really had to tell you guys about anxiety. And I like I said, I don't know the most about anxiety, but I know what it feels like. And if somebody knows what it feels like, well, they probably have some things to say about it. So it's okay to feel a little anxious, but remind yourself and acknowledge it. Don't tear yourself down for feeling some sort of discomfort, but find it. Find what's bugging you and fix it. And don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to call anybody or talk to somebody about it, because it's normal and everybody goes through it. And during this pandemic, you know, we all would like a little support. So with that, guys, I would like to say thank you so much for watching. It's been a good one. Holy smokes. I'll see you guys next Thursday. Be sure to tune into the podcast or coming up this weekend, Shaylin Fox this Saturday. I'd also like to thank him, my good friend. He's an amazing dude. So guys, tune into Shaylin's podcast this Saturday. And there's amazing other podcasters coming out this rest of the week. So tune in to the rest of the stars on 7 Stars Media. With that, I'd have to say peace and love, guys.